So the fear that's instilled is actually it comes from the media itself. It comes from this embedded mentality. Oh, if you don't file your taxes, you're gonna get audited. And apparently, Joseph Stack had some serious issues. What are your thoughts on? I mean, just that the action alone, him flying a plane into, I keep wanting to say World Trade Center because that's what I've learned over the years, and it feels like a mini 9/11 to some degree. What were your initial thoughts when you saw this take place?
Deeply saddened, Gary. I mean, truly saddened and disappointed. You know, I think most Americans, most people, they feel sad when one of their fellow human beings is injured or killed, or especially when someone is distraught enough to kill themselves or to try to kill themselves and take other people with them. So, first and foremost, just a human sadness that somebody would be pushed or would react in the way that he did. Sadly though, and I think also the counterproductive nature of it is that it increases the us versus them mentality that more and more as time goes on permeates the relationship between the government and the people. I think it's very counterproductive in that way. I have to say, with 5 years in the IRS and then 11 years outside and seeing the reaction of the public, even when I worked for the IRS, I mean, even police officers that I worked with, FBI agents, DEA agents were fearful. When I would walk into a room, even though, I consider myself a pretty friendly guy and pretty low key and calm, but when I would walk into a room and people knew that I was an IRS special agent, they were almost quaking in their boots. And it's just that agency, makes people fearful. And frankly, what the IRS does to people on a day-to-day basis with bank levies, with leaning their homes, with destroying them economically, I'm surprised there aren't more people, taking this violent pathway. I'm not saying I want that. I don't, and I'm thankful that the more people don't. But
and that's what I wanted to ask you is, have you ever heard of anything like this happen before? Any type of acts of violence? People mailing, inappropriate material back to the IRS, or, just some type of action against the IRS previous.
It certainly does happen. I think it's relatively rare when you consider, there's 300 million Americans in the country. And even if you go back 10 or 20 years, we're still talking, over 200 million Americans, 250 million Americans. So when you consider the number per capita of suicides or violent behavior, it's infinitesimal. It's just almost non-existent. So I think the vast majority of people simply grin and bear it. Their lives are destroyed. I know people whose lives have been destroyed. The IRS tried to destroy my life for simply speaking out as to what they're up to. They tried to prosecute me and put me in prison. And of course, the trial showed that they had no evidence of wrongdoing whatsoever and had no authority or right really to bring charges against me in the first place. So they really will try to destroy you if they can. If you're a person that you can't get publicity, if you can't get assistance from people, the IRS also tries to impoverish you first so that there you have no ability to fight back. You can't afford to fight. They use a lot of dirty tricks, and it catches up with them. If you come home and kick your dog every day, sooner or later that dog might come and bite you.
What other dirty tricks can you bring up, that specific dirty tricks that you've seen, you've witnessed with your own eyes that the IRS has done to American people?
Ending is for person's Social Security check. The statute limits the levy to 15%, but many times I've seen the levy, and a levy is like a garnishment against someone's benefit. I've seen the garnishment be 100%, and the IRS knows full well that that's the only wherewithal, that's the only payment coming in that the person uses to live on. Yet the IRS will levy 100% of the benefit, literally putting the person, out of commission where they have no money to eat or pay their rent or anything.
Joe, I mean, look, what you're telling me right there is so it's so despicable. Where do they get the authority to do that to people's Social Security checks?
Well, the problem is that the IRS is not accountable. The Congress is afraid of the IRS. The judges are afraid of the IRS. The public is afraid of the IRS. And these agents can just do what they want. I mean, unfortunately, that's the case. And that's why I say I'm glad that there aren't more people who take Mr. Stack's type of action. I'm glad that people are patient enough, and I don't know if they draw upon their spiritual beliefs or their family or just the patience they were born with, but they endure these kinds of draconian measures. And I've encountered businesses where if they simply want to ask questions about the audit, or they want to fight the audit, but they don't give the kind of cooperation that the auditor demands, the auditor will simply disallow 100% of their deductions, close the case, and then let the next level of IRS take care of the person. And it just causes an enormous amount of expense and time for then the business owner, to fight this at the next level. So I could go on and on about the collection measures, the audit measures that they will do to force cooperation and compliance. And it really is, it's terrible. I don't know why the American people put up with it, but of course they really largely do put up with it, and I think that's why the IRS continues